from the Creative Cultural Industries in Eldon building. This is CCI Radio.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Thursday the 5th of March, it's 1 o'clock, and welcome to a new chapter for the University of Portsmouth, and in particular, the Faculty of Creative and Cultural Industries. You are listening to a pop-up broadcast on CCI Radio. I'm Lloyd Ashton, and we also have Ryan Jenkins and our reporter, Jay Power. Hi, everyone.
Afternoon.
Hello.
Thanks, Lloyd. Yes, we are very excited to be live on CCI Radio, which is a new broadcast platform where you can expect to hear intelligent conversation, local news, discover new things and learn about student and staff work. All the while, we are here to aim to entertain you. And today, this pop-up broadcast is coming from Eldon Hub. Now, you know what we're all about? Here's what's coming up in today's show.
We'll be discussing this week's local news, discovering the language of the local Pomponians, and facing some facts, but that's not all.
We also have some coverage of the race with Rowan, some endangered rays, and information piece on the student elections, as well as a live interview with Aidan Williams, who is in the thick of the election fever.
However, we now turn our attention to the local news as we find out what has been going on around the city. Stamshaw Infant School has recently gained Ofsted acclaim as good across the board. Inspectors said that pupils' attainment is average by the end of year 2. They make good progress in writing and maths and excellent progress in reading, given their starting points. Good teaching over time helps pupils achieve, and teachers plan lessons that engage children, so well done to Stamshaw.
And that leads nicely on to this next story. Portsmouth City Council has teamed up with the National Apprenticeship and Service Association of Learning Providers for Hampshire and the Isle of Wight City deal to help assist young people with health difficulties getting into work. Organised by Hampshire Chamber of Commerce, the event Future Portsmouth, a great deal for business, will run from 7:30am to 10:30am at Portsmouth Marriott Hotel. To book tickets, visit hampshire-chamber.co.uk or call 01329 242 420.
And finally, the Believe and Achieve Duathlon will be happening on Sunday the 15th of March, which also is Mother's Day, remember? It's their first duathlon of 3 this year, and it starts at 8:30 from Speaker's Corner on Clarence Esplanade. Entry forms are available on their website. It's a great event designed to encourage and introduce people to multi-sporting events. Now, with all of the local news, red tape and confetti out of the way, it's time to get on with the show. And Ryan, it's over to you, geezer.
Yes, now we can all learn something from this. Our language is always evolving and morphing, and it varies hugely from one part of the country to another. With all this comes culture and traditions, how we relate to each other, and it becomes what defines us. Joining us in the studio is Sarah Forbes, who has been out and about talking to people about Portsmouth's tongue.
Did you know that Portsmouth has its own slang? It may not be as prevalent as it once was, but many memorable words and phrases still survive on the lips of many, some of which can be commonly heard in and around town, like mush, dinlow, and squinny. All of these are slang native to Portsmouth. So, do you speak Pompey? I went out with a list of words and phrases referred to as Pompey speak to see how many people knew them, and later discuss the difference in dialects and whether they should be preserved.
The next generation after you will just keep dialecting and fighting the God. The only way we'll hear it is such on YouTube and places like that where the older people are explaining what the dialect means. Like I said, my local area up in the north of England, there's quite a few bits on YouTube, the Lancashire dialect. And you've got people using that dialect, and so the younger people are listening to it and saying, well, you know, that's how people used to speak. The Pompey dialect. When I moved here, I didn't understand what part of it was. To ask what someone's doing, say, what you're doing of, or what is she doing of? That's a word that a lot of people down here use. But up to moving to the south, I never heard it. I never heard that. It's what you're doing, or where you're going, what you're doing, not what you're doing of. The word of seems to come in quite a bit at the back of it.
Yeah.
You know, another one is when they haven't seen someone for a while, or not, you know, like a neighbour, they've not been near or by. No, that's another phrase I picked up from down here. That was never said where I come from before.
When I had a look at the list of the Portsmouth
slang. I didn't realise it was actually slang. Realised that.
No, but you've been brought up with that to think it's normal. But they are slang words. But you've been brought up with it. To me, they're slang words because I weren't brought up with it. You were born with it. You've heard it all your life. So to you, it's just a normal way of speaking. Like I said to you earlier, what you're doing of. You know, that's completely alien to me. But to a person down here, they know exactly what you're talking about. So would you. But me, I would know, but I didn't know if it's you know what I mean? Yeah, it's dialects are very interesting. You study different dialects. You've got Lancashire dialect and the Yorkshire dialect. Although they're only a stone throw away from each other, so the pennines separating one to the other. The dialects are similar, but they're not identical.
Sarah is here with us now to tell us a little bit more about it. Who were you actually interviewing there?
I was actually interviewing my granddad.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, he's originally from Lancashire, so for him, his dialect and his slang would be like Lanky slang. So obviously when he first moved down here, it was quite different.
So what do you think about like the usage of slang in general? Do you think slang is something that's good for dialogue? Do you think that it should be something that we take more seriously, or do you think it's just something that local communities do?
I think it's more of a thing that local communities kind of do. Like you can go to any small area and they'll all have their own slang words that they use. And so if I say went up to Scotland, I might be in the middle of some quite rural town and have no idea what someone's talking about if they start using their own slang. The same as if they came down here and started and listened to stuff that I would say they might not know.
Yeah, definitely.
And I believe you have a little quiz arranged for us.
Yeah.
I'm going to be taking a back seat on this because I'm a local like yourself.
Yeah, I've got a list of some of the slang words here. We can see if you might get any of them. The first one I think is quite common. A lot of people use this, and it's an expression which is "wee."
Wee?
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. It's quite exciting. It sounds quite fun.
Yeah, it sounds quite surprising, I guess.
Yeah, it actually it's used when people express surprise. So it can be used upon hearing something strange, incredible, or horrible. So any of those circumstances it will work out.
Wee.
Just like that, yeah. This one might be a pretty obvious one, which is mush.
Mush, yeah.
You'll hear that a lot in town.
Sounds like something you'd say to a dog.
Yeah. I think these two are quite. Well, there's about three actually. These three I think are quite more for here. They're not really heard anywhere else. Which is one of them is dinlow.
Dinlow. What kind of context would you use that in?
Like you could say, "Oh, he's being a right din." He's being a
Oh,
right
I
dinlow.
see. So a bit like a bit of a downer then.
Well, it's a light-hearted insult, meaning fool. So if someone's being a bit of an idiot, you could say, "Oh, he's being a bit of a din."
Ah, I see.
There's also squinny. A lot of people who aren't from here don't really know.
Squinny. What does squinny mean?
Oh, pick me. Squinny. To be in a mood.
Yeah.
To be in a mood with someone, you're in a squinny with someone.
Yeah. Or it can also be used to say that someone is having a squinny. So if they're like complaining.
Okay, lovely. Well, thank you very, very much, Sarah. A little bird has told me before you leave us, on a language note, I believe you're learning Japanese?
Yeah, I am.
So how about a thank you and goodbye in Japanese? Sarah Forbes, take it away.
Arigatou gozaimasu. Sayonara.
There we go, Sarah Forbes on CCI Radio. But guess what? It's now time to face the facts. This week's facts have been sourced from our chosen topics. So for Portsmouth slang, we'll be delving into facts about the city of Portsmouth. So without further ado, let's face those facts. Over to you, Ryan.
Yes, Portsmouth's motto, Heaven's Light Our Guide, was the slogan of the Order of the Star of India and appeared on troop ships. Rifles, revolvers, scimitars and daggers engraved with the message were all distributed around India.
Portsmouth appears on the oldest surviving route map of Great Britain, the Gough map. which dates from about 1360 and shows 600 towns and cities. Portsmouth is labelled on the map as Portis Mouth and is represented by a single red-roofed building.
Jonas Hanway was born in Portsmouth in 1712. He inherited a fortune, lucky him, and began a career as a philanthropist. He is also remembered for, get this, being the first person in England to use an umbrella. How handy is that?
Pretty handy. Wild rabbits caught on Portsea Common, enclosed within the dockyard in 1864, were permitted to be taken home by workers. Later, it also applied to any government material that was smuggled out. A rabbit job was a piece of DIY carried out in work time.
In high winds, the Spinnaker Tower can flex a whole 6 inches, or 150 millimetres.
And as us fellas know, every inch counts. Portsmouth is one of the largest fruit handling ports in the country and processes 100% of the UK's Jersey potatoes, 65 to 70% of the UK's bananas, so with makes such as Dole and Fifes, and 100% of the UK's Moroccan citrus fruits.
That's all from Face the Facts at the moment. But don't forget, we have Jay Parra with a live interview all about the sabbatical officer elections. But first, here's a little piece about the race for Rowan, which took place on Sunday. Jake Wafe went along to join some of the runners and organisers.
3, 2, 1, go!
This is the CCI radio coverage of the Race with Rowan. This is the second year that the Race with Rowan has taken place. This race has 2 sections, the fun run, a 5k event, and a 10k run for those more serious athletes. This is all helping to raise money for the Rowan Hospice, a voluntary independent hospice which provides specialist palliative care to patients with life-limiting progressive illnesses and to their relatives and carers. So what are you two here running today for?
Just for the charity run. It's all in a good cause, so looking forward to it.
How long did it take for you two to prepare for this run?
A month. I run regularly, so that's it.
So what are you guys running for?
We're helping raising money for the brilliant cause with Ditcham Park School.
The Rowans is amazing. The work that they do there and the volunteers that are there, and they just look after the people obviously that are near the end of their life and support the family, and on the service they give is just absolutely invaluable. They are amazing.
So I'm joined by Amanda Mahoney, the communications manager for Rowan's Hospice.
Actually, I think we had about 400 people last year, thereabouts, and it looks like we're on target for that this year, so we're really, really chuffed.
What is it like?
We would describe it as very serene and tranquil. It's a very sort of lovely place for patients and their families, but obviously behind the scenes there's an awful lot of hard work going on. Not only obviously staffing the ward 24/7 with all the nursing staff, but
it really brings about a sense of community. So what other events do you have coming up?
Oh, we've got a packed calendar of events. It's all on our website. All of our events are listed on our website. Coming up, we've got an abseil down the Spinnaker Tower. You can skydive. And our biggest fundraising event here, it's everyone turning out and supporting the hospice. Whether that's 5 people, 100 people, 500 people, it doesn't really matter. It's the support people give us. And day to day, there's our support groups out in the community, maybe holding a coffee morning or bring and buy sale that brings in the pennies and the pounds that is so important. And then mass events like today, obviously we hope to raise thousands, but it's sort of every penny counts, and every small event, every big event, it all counts towards the target. So today is incredibly important, and we're really grateful to all the runners and obviously all the supporters, all the volunteers who are registering them and out marshalling on the course to make sure they go the right comes in. That's brilliant too.
Okay, well, looking around, I can see you've done a really great job. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Creative and cultural industries. We now turn our attention towards the world of aquatics in the form of Portsmouth's resident ungulate ray. Our reporter Jake Ives visited the depths of the Blue Reef Aquarium.
Hello, I'm here with Lindsay Holloway at the Portsmouth's Blue Reef on a captive breeding programme. What exactly is the programme aimed to achieve, and is it working?
Well, it's part of a UK stud book, because ungulate rays in the wild are becoming quite endangered now due to overfishing, and they are actually protected. So we're hoping that by having them here, captive populations are growing, and that there's just less pressure on them in the wild, and we can also increase awareness of their plight in the wild as well.
Yeah, I also read that the rays themselves, we learned that they have quite a large habitat within the ocean. Like, it comes from here all the way to Guinea, I think it was. Because they live in such a wide area.
We are part of the EU, and there are sort of variations around with UK waters, really.
What makes the undulate rays different from any other rays people would usually see in, wasn't it? Almost folded.
Well, folded up within their bodies,
yeah.
And they lay eggs, and they're just like a chicken's egg. You have a yolk inside; they're just like a chicken's egg, and the mother, once she's been fertilised by a male, will then look like seaweed essentially. So they're quite well camouflaged, and then the baby, the embryo, will stay inside there for, depending on the temperature of the water, is fully developed, and it's eaten all the yolk. It forces itself out the side of the egg case and swims away.
How many undulate rays the programme wants to sort of reproduce, or is it just sort of reproduce them and make them not as endangered as they are now?
Essentially, yeah. I mean, there's no real target as such, because you never know. Not just for the actual breeding, but it's also to make sure there's enough genetic variation. So we actually keep a count and a record of which mothers and fathers go to different aquariums. So we actually separate them genetically, so that the young, that there isn't enough genetic variation. So that's one of the main purposes of it as well.
Has the aquarium had any experience with any other endangered species before, or is this the first?
Ooh, let me think. Yes, we have. Well, several species of skate and ray, not just native species, but also some tropical species.
Once again, it's time to face the facts. Like, did you know some fish can actually swim backwards? Like
they suffocate if you pull them backwards. I'm told anyway. Not that I've done it, but yeah, very pretentious on behalf of the triggerfish there.
Well, another fact is that most brands of lipstick, and this one I'm not pleased to find out, contain fish scales. I'm not happy about that at all.
Not kissing you. Also, many fish can actually taste without opening their mouths. Wouldn't that be a great skill in modern life? If you could have a superpower, maybe just taste without even having to open your mouth.
But also,
certainly heavily researched, wasn't it?
It was, definitely. We thought, well, let's make sure. And yes.
Well, goldfish actually can't blink, as they actually have no eyelids, which is strange. I always, there's that saying, isn't there? You know, like blinking like a goldfish. Am I remembering that wrong? There is a saying, something to do with blinking like a goldfish.
I've heard drinking like a goldfish.
No.
Great fact. Also, many fish species, like the clownfish, can change their gender through their life cycles.
17 sharks per hour. So everyone just remember, hug a shark.
I'm going to call that, I think that's the fact of the day, because I think it's touted around, that's quite a shocking statistic. People go on holiday with fear of sharks, when, it's the reverse.
The other way around, like spiders, really.
I think after Jaws was released, didn't the number of sharks that got killed per year just rise dramatically?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yes, Steven Spielberg propaganda for you.
Yeah.
Well, given my affinity with goldfish, another little goldfish fact is that they can actually see in infrared, which is invisible to us.
Is that because they don't have any eyelids?
It could be.
Can they remember that they can see in infrared, though? It's actually filtered seawater flowing through their bodies. And on the subject of bodies, are you interested in a lifestyle change? Well, if so, Jack Matthew has been to meet James Whipp to talk about the challenges of bodybuilding while studying at the University of Portsmouth.
It's about 3 years ago now. I think one of my mates just started getting into it, and I went along to the gym with him a few times, and from there you just become addictive, I suppose. It's just gone from there. Anyone can get into it, it's not exactly hard. It's just whether you have the passion and motivation to, I suppose, go far with it in a sense. Obviously, doing the whole competing side of it, I don't go out much, and even if I do, I mostly don't drink. So for me, it's definitely a lifestyle, and yeah, it's not really a lifestyle for everyone. It just depends how bad you want it, I guess. So what's better, bulking or shredding, or staying shredded whilst bulking? I've always bulked and then shredded, as it's just easier to just concentrate on one thing at a time, I suppose. However, I think from now on, I'm just going to stay lean. What I do and how obsessed I am, I suppose. It's definitely hard, especially when you have a lot of work going on, and you obviously do want to do well in both sectors. And it's just sort of, you know, I want nothing more than to become successful in the fitness industry. So my mind's just set. My concentration and dedication towards my degree, but that's just the way I am. You know, I'm not to say everyone's going to be the same. I mean, I do try on my degree, but probably nowhere near as much as I'm sure most people do. But it's the way it is.
Elected sabbatical offers will be sitting on the Student Council, which can be attended by all students. Recently, one of the motions
At the University of Portsmouth, the Students' Union exists to represent over 21,000 students, which has its challenges. Whilst for many students, knowledge of the union will only extend so far as the Waterhole Bar, UPSU provides support and funding for 103 different student societies, as well as services to students allowing their experiences to be represented. One of the ways in which this is done is through the ASM, also known as Council voted on the No Platform policy, which prohibited hate groups being allowed any platform within the Students' Union, as well as the Support Student Parents 2 motions, with a turnout of around 30 students on the floor. One of these motions was the One Student, One Vote policy, which aimed to address. I spoke to various people around the union to find out what exactly is One Student, One Vote.
So One Student, One Vote is an idea to change our current representative democracy at the Students' Union on Student Council, as opposed to the current system where the collective vote of those that attend that aren't representatives have one vote collectively, and representatives have an individual vote themselves.
At students, that it should have a vote. Just like we saw last month, the floor did vote for One Student, One Vote, whereas the council didn't.
It relates to how students can vote in Student Council, and this makes it an important topic because ultimately engagement is very key throughout our union, and we do have to maintain it. We do have to keep it good so that, well, we get engagement. It's the core.
Mainly because perhaps there's some officers that people feel aren't representing them and they'd like to kind of represent their own views. I think sometimes people just have ideas and want to express them, and if they're in the position where they can.
The motion was rejected by Student Council. In January's all-student meeting, the majority of the council voted against giving the floor individual of this vote.
I felt the outcome was very frustrating. You had the whole floor barring 3 people voting for it, and yet all of that, then there was good 20, maybe 30 people, and despite all that, it counted to 1 vote, and it was defeated because I think 3 people, about 4 or 5 people voted against it on council, who I may say are actually representing us, which isn't doing a great job when the whole floor was voting for it, barring 3 people. It was very frustrating.
It relates directly to our democracy, the flaws in our democracy, the anger that a lot of involved and engaged members of the union have against the union, really. Whenever you suggest something to the union, they always tell you about all-student meeting and how important it is. But then whenever you decide to register a vote against something, it's very difficult to get it.
Something that that people want to implement immediately at Student Council to allow it to happen. It isn't that, and I think there are ways around it. For example, through much more of a technological direct democracy, using social media or using a website or using other bits and bobs where we can engage more students to have their say on it. And I think I think as well, if we
turn up to student council and sit on the floor, and even on the panel of elected representatives, that's quite small as well. Some the people at student council, which isn't an entire demographic.
The imaginary situation where someone gets 100 people to vote on a motion they believe in, but obviously people who have suggested one student vote have given the council, if the council feels that someone has done this, someone has sort of taken advantage of one student vote, the council then has, I think it was supermajority veto. So if the council doesn't vote in majority for it, then the motion doesn't get passed. So this sort of imaginary situation where a mob turns up is sort of counteracted. Some student officers, I won't name who, are seen to be doing nothing, and their vote is the only thing that they currently have power over. So I think some of them are just wanted to keep their vote theirs and not lose any power, which would make them have to do any work.
So, with all this controversy on how all student meetings are run and student council's decision making, is there any point to student council? And if there is, what changes can be made?
The fact that the voting is flawed means that the council, that the institution isn't representative. So it should not be passing literally fundamental changes to the union that affects all students.
I think at the moment there is a lack of engagement from those members that it's trying to represent. I mean, we don't get me wrong, we try our hardest to engage those groups, but it is partly down to how we can try and access particular groups. For example, trying to cover 50% of the population for women students, be 20% of the population, which is the estimated average of the Black, Asian, minority ethnic community or BAME community. It becomes very difficult, and to me, without having the information or data available, it can literally just go down to running into people and walking into people. And I think it would be a lot easier for representatives to represent those groups if they had that data available to them.
I think maybe the opposite system could do with an overhaul. I don't really like it that much. I don't fully believe it's very effective. I don't think it really makes that much.
It isn't working at all. Not at all. You have liberation officers, such as women's officer, BAME, and disability, voting on stuff to do with, say, how people get votes and some people don't. It just doesn't make sense.
I think replacing it with an alternative system is the route that we're heading down at the moment. We're currently under a governance review, and a lot of the situations and ways that we're looking at students being able to engage with democracy at the Students' Union is a lot more technological, as opposed to kind of being immediately represented at student council, the all-student meeting.
Even someone who is proactive in their work, such as disability officer, he has tried to get, if he wants to do his job, he must be able to send an email out to all disabled students, but obviously ASDAC won't provide that list to him. So he doesn't know what to do. There's loads of sort of barriers. It should be replaced with an alternative system. What I know, like I said, there's a governance review which is proposing alternative systems, and once we hear back from that, we'll be able to criticise and add and construct more onto it. But I think there's a core issue at heart as well, which is the apathy we have in Portsmouth. The union fails to want to involve itself with anything political. With an upcoming candidates debate for Portsmouth South MPs in the next general election, and the only person from the union who's helping us is Grant Clark, and the only reason he's doing it is because he wants to, whereas the union isn't putting any of its time, money, or marketing skills, even though this is a massive thing. This is something that the Vice-Chancellor is coming to, and they're refusing to put any sort of help into it. I mean, we've got the 4 main candidates running for Portsmouth South, and they've done nothing for us.
Well, we can look forward to the results of the governance review to find out if students get more of a say in how the union is run. Till then, if you're interested to see Student Council for yourself, the next All Students meeting is on the 19th of March at 5 p.m. in the 3rd space. Get down there and get voting.
I'm here in the Eldon Hub with Aidan Williams, who is the deputy editor of the student newspaper, who has been covering the sabbatical elections for the past month, I believe. Well, this year there are 5 sabbatical officer roles to fill. There are 4 vice presidents for education and democracy, activities, sport and welfare and community. And of course, there's also the role of president. Well, there are 19 candidates this year who have all been campaigning tirelessly this week in order to secure votes. And I can see just across the hall from me there are elections assistants all around the university who are encouraging people to vote and give out wristbands and free breakfasts and all that lovely stuff. Yeah, and I think they've got lots of sweets as well. They look pretty delicious, and we might steal one after. Well, they're all the candidates this year, all 19 of them, and why you should vote. Aidan, thank you for being here.
No worries, no worries. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. I'd love to hear your opinions as always. So, Aidan, could you tell us about what the sabbatical officers actually do in the Students' Union?
I think they essentially act as a figurehead, a spearhead for their particular area that they're elected for.
I see.
Societies and media.
Oh, I see. So like the athletics union, or would that be under sport?
I believe there is some crossover. Don't hold me to that though. I'm not 100% sure.
I see. And yeah, like education and democracy, that's a really important role. I mean, what does the sabbatical officer for education and democracy really deal with? I guess like course reps, but then also stuff like student council, which we've just been talking about, one student, one vote. Is that something that they have to address?
Yeah, the role of education and democracy is to look after that area, I believe so.
And Aidan, why is it, in your opinion, why do you think it's really important for students at Portsmouth to be voting in these elections?
For next year, and I think that's really important because the Students' Union is a great outlet for students.
Why do you think the union is a good place? Why do you think it's important for Portsmouth students? Like, why can they go there and get their voice heard, or engage in activities?
Because you can get a lot of experience. It really does help shape you as a person and gaining experience for what you're going to do in later life. There's not much that being head of a society or being really involved cannot help you with on your CV. It's really it looks great and it's a lot of fun.
And I know you spend a lot of time in the student union. For those people who've never really been there, or have only gone to like the Waterhole Bar, what else is in the building? Like, I know there's a lot of interesting stuff. Can you tell me some about that?
It's pretty all-encompassing. You've got Third Space, which acts as a really good resting workplace, where there's also a Starbucks as well if you want just a more relaxed.
Great. Yeah, what else is there?
A range of equipment for you to practice and develop with. And then there's also meeting rooms that your societies may well use to hold meetings and yeah.
I think anyone can book out those rooms as well.
Yes.
Well, as of this morning, I think there's a 17.6 voter turnout. Do you think students know enough about the elections? And why do you think it's so low? Or is it low? Maybe for sabbatical elections it's quite high?
I don't think students know enough because not enough students are engaged, and that's one of the big challenges for all students' unions across the UK. You've really got to get students involved because that's who you're representing. And
I mean, people listening to this, they might not always know about stuff that's happening in student council. Do you think that engaging with voting might increase that communication between the students and the sabbatical officers?
I think it can be the start. If you've got a friend who's maybe running in an election, or and then you can realise really how much space there is for you to get involved and help out. I think it can be the start being involved, and I'd thoroughly recommend it.
Well, I believe next year it's going to be implemented next year, but I think Student Council voted to get rid of gimmick campaigns, costumes and like different slogans. And I know last year Grant ran as Doctor Who. Do you think allowing this gimmick theme is interesting? Does it increase engagement, or do you think it reduces?
One potential reason for a lack of engagement, or a lower engagement, I should say, is perhaps that doesn't seem like serious politics, and you want it to be serious politics. So if you remove the gimmicks, then you can remove that possible explanation. But then there is the flip side. If engagement drops quite suddenly or too much, then you're going to have to bring it back. I think it's uncharted territory for quite some time.
Definitely. Well, I believe you were at the question time sessions for all the candidates, which were all last week. It was every day of the week, I think. You had activities on Monday. You had, I know sports was on Wednesday, which was strange because I think half of the people that are affected by sports were getting, drinking downstairs in the union below.
It's done
rather than actually
alphabetically with the president always last.
Yeah.
So there is a logic behind it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, if you could go back in time and ask any question to all the candidates, what would your question be?
For me, as a really engaged student, I'm not so much interested in what you're going to do, because you're going to be very busy in that role. Anyway, I know a lot of the sabbatical officers quite well. The thing I've been more interested in, or at least my ears have always perked up around, is when the how comes into the equation.
I see. So do you think that there's always the danger with SAB candidates that they have really big promises and they don't know how to actually go about doing them?
I don't think there's a problem with being idealistic, or having really good ambitions.
Yeah.
I guess it's always kind of tough because a lot of these people are it's always kind of tough because it's always something. To some degree, it's always
forward for certain, sabbatical roles. Do you think more people from humanities courses? I know that with the voting statistics that are being fed up live on the upsu.net site, the CCI are currently sociology.
Yeah. So then naturally, it kind of makes sense that in their interests, for example, I'm on the journalism course. It's only natural.
Fourth. If Lloyd, Ryan, if you could have any manifesto in the union for next year, if you could decide what gets put forward to,
Yeah. Well, I've already voted. I voted the other day because of
free breakfast.
Free breakfast.
I think that's a big temptation for a lot of students.
It is a brilliant temptation. I think they should do it in proper politics as well. Give you a pound, give you some sweets.
I think that was absolutely a fantastic idea what they did. I thoroughly enjoyed my bacon roll this morning.
Oh yeah, I've got to go back tomorrow as well. It was 3 out of 5 days. That ain't bad, is it?
So in an ideal world, if you could pass any motion in the union, what would your motion be, Ryan?
Oh, it'd probably be a cheesy chips day, because when you get you get chips and then they're like, oh yeah, it's another 30-50p or something for cheesy chips, just none of that. Basically, just cheesy chips, yeah.
I feel like food is a common theme with you, Ryan.
It is. I love it.
I feel like the union could really engage you as a key member if they just give you.
Give me some food every so often,
paid for your weekly Tesco shop, and then you'd be running the union.
Food is at the top of Ryan's agenda.
It is. I'm so hungry.
What about you, Lloyd? What would your ideal motion be?
Well, to yourself and to Aidan and to the listeners, I'd like to get this motion passed. I'd like to pass this bill. The motion I'd like to see most would be one day in the academic calendar that all students and staff, they must communicate solely through song and interpretive dance. What do you think? Can you put a few strings for me there, or?
I think the drama students would have a field day.
Yeah.
See them everywhere.
I just think bringing music into your life, I think it'd go down really, really well.
I think that'd be quite fun. You'd find out who's a good singer and who's a bad singer pretty quickly, though.
Well, I was sort of thinking that the rubbish singers amongst us, of which I count myself in that group, I'm willing to be the team captain for the rubbish singer group. We could go for the interpretive dance, you see, and then the people that are good at singing could go for the singing.
That's a great idea. What about you, Aidan? What would your ideal motion be?
Hammocks.
Hammocks.
Hammocks around the students' union. They look cool, man, and it's great. There were too many times last year where I kind of had things to do. I needed a half an hour nap. It would take an hour to get home. I just wanted to. Hammocks would be really good.
Yeah, I can imagine some poor lecturer having to wake up half their class from the hammocks just outside the lecture halls, but...
Oh, no, just within the Students' Union. Pretend that we're tropical and not in wet and rainy.
Should we put some palm trees up as well?
Yeah, why not?
I'd go back in history, actually. I'd go to sort of like Admiral Lord Nelson's day, sticking with the theme of Portsmouth again, with the hammocks that they used to use on the ship. Are we gonna turn into a corridor and everyone's just gonna be swinging, in unison?
Well, thank you so much, Aidan, for coming in today. It was so lovely to talk to you, and hopefully tomorrow elections result will be interesting. I know you're going to be there covering it, so
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I also covered it last year, and it's a really nice note.
Yeah, and it will be covered live, I think. So, if you're interested, please do vote. And also, I think the voting online closes at 5 p.m. tomorrow. So get voting. You get free wristband. You can get 10% off at the Union shop and free breakfast. Thanks, Aidan, for coming in.
There we have it, free breakfast. What more could you want? A great insight there into the ongoing elections, of course. And remember, just a notion what Jay said a second ago, remember voting closes at 5 p.m. tomorrow, so make your vote count and get your voice heard. On the topic of Friday, Ryan has some news for us of what our television counterparts at CCI TV have in store for you guys tomorrow.
Well, this Friday's live show is a special edition of the Eye on Portsmouth, showcasing films made for local Portsmouth charities and community groups by students studying BSc Television and Broadcasting. The show will explore the experiences of the students working with real-life clients in a series of live interviews from the Eldon Hub. The show will explore themes including the benefits of students working with real clients, whether they would have done anything differently, and what the clients thought of the process. This has been the first CCI broadcast. We all hope you have enjoyed the show, and a big thank you from myself, Ryan Jenkins.
Me, Lloyd Ashton.
And me, Jay Parra.
Until next time, you've been listening to CCI Radio. Check out our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Have a great afternoon, and thank you.
From the Creative Cultural Industries and Eldon building, this is CCI Radio.